because it was so just gross what they were doing. The courts and the DA and the judge hit him, and we got a really good conviction out of that case.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin, and as usual, I am back with more skills and stories from the wild. Today we are speaking with John Anderson. John is a man with many fantastic wild stories. He is a game warden who works for Nevada Fish and Game. And I mean, he has a long story, a deep connection in the wild, grew up in the wilderness, doing all kinds of mischievous things. From those times all the way through to chasing ne'er-do-well individuals who are trying to poach and commit crimes on the wilderness landscape. Yeah, he's got a whole bunch of great tales for us today. John is also part of a TV series that's out at the moment on Animal Planet. Nevada Wild is a 10-season, actually that's not right, it's a 10-episode show on Tuesday, January 6th at 9 p.m. EST. It's actually the finale that's going out on Tuesday, so that will be, I guess, the day after this episode goes live. So be sure to go and check that out. We're going to jump into that episode any second, but first, if you are new to the podcast, then welcome. It would be fantastic if you could give us a quick follow. What else do I want to say? If you are a returning guest, then yeah, it would be amazing if you could give us a good review. Good reviews go a long way in order to up us in the algorithms and make sure that when people are searching wildlife stories and information like we provide, then we are the thing that they see high up in the list. Okay, I think that is everything for now. Here's John. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We were just talking about rain, which is a very British thing, I've got to say. But, I mean, right now it's pouring down. I'm on the west coast of Northern California. And you were just saying there's kind of a big transition for you. You had 120 inches of rain where you grew up? Is that right?
I mean, I grew up in the Olympic National Forest, which is it's a rainforest, evergreen rainforest in the Pacific Northwest. And rain was just our life growing up. You know, we constantly had athlete's foot because our feet were always wet. You know, if you didn't go out in the rain, you didn't go out. So yeah. I think July and August, the Pacific Northwest is probably the prettiest place in the whole world because that's like your one break in the rainy season.
Yeah.
And, you know, the rest of the year it's raining and we were outdoors all the time. So, our lifestyle just put us outside. But here I live about 2.5 hours north of Las Vegas. Okay. In the Great Basin, and it's high desert. We get, on a good year, we'll get 15 to 20 inches of rain a year. So it's definitely different, but it's really grown on me. Everything's open. You can get on top of a mountain and see 100 miles in any direction. You can see mountain ranges that would take you, 2 hours to drive to. And it's all open. Nevada is really weird. It's got more mountains than anywhere in the nation. It just goes mountain range to basin to mountain range to basin. The basins are all sagebrush flats with, lakes that dry up and rivers that used to exist. And the mountains are these islands of habitat. Goes into PJ and then up into mahogany and aspen and you get really high and it gets into ponderosa pines, and then you drop down into the next valley and it's a sagebrush flat with antelope, and then back up on the next mountain range. And it's just such a beautiful place. You get up in those places and there's nobody. Like, you can get in a valley that's 20 miles wide and 50 miles long, and you're the only person in there.
Wow.
Except for maybe a trapper, or, everyone thinks of Nevada as being Las Vegas and everything that goes on there in this giant city with all the entertainment. But Nevada is wild. Like, it's so unique. There's nobody out here. And there's 2 million people in Clark County, and then I'm in Lincoln County, which is 5,000 people, and then during hunting season it might go up to 6,000.
Wow.
Like, it's our tourism, our economy, everything revolves around the outdoors and ranching and hunting and a little bit of fishing. We got a couple lakes, but again, not a lot. So
yeah,
super excited to live here, super excited to raise my family in this environment. So
that must have been such a big change, man. Like, I mean, even now where I'm in the redwood forest, and it doesn't rain quite as much as it does where you are, but it rains a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just the closeness of everything, right? Like, it's quite an adjustment when you leave where you are and you like have open space again. You can actually see further than, I don't know, half a mile at most.
Yeah.
It's pretty big as a change, right? Like, I don't know, it does something. It certainly does to me.
It's the same thing though. It's wild spaces, like, that's whether it's up in the Olympic National Park or, up in Great Basin National Park. It's wild spaces. It's the same thing. It's God's country. There's critters everywhere, and it's just there is a different feel to it, but at the same time, it's just being in God's creation and, being out in the hills.
Yeah, and just admiring it. And you can't admire it properly unless you're in it, right?
Yeah.
You are a game warden, and how long have you been a game warden where you are now?
I became a game warden in the state of Nevada in 2012. I spent a year in Las Vegas on the water patrolling Lake Mead and Lake Mojave. And then right as soon as I had the ability to, I got out of Vegas because that wasn't my scene. I didn't want to be a game warden in the city. I wanted to get out in a rural setting.
Yeah.
So I've been here for, 13 years now in Lincoln County. We live in a tiny little town called Panaca. It's about 1,000 people. So yeah, it's awesome. It's such a great little community. Everyone's really tight. Everyone knows everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For better and for worse. I mean, I think there's more better than worse living in a small community. Everyone knows your business, but at the same time, you know everybody, and everyone takes care of your kids. It's a community, really strong community. So,
For sure.
And that's where we grew up too. We grew up in the Olympic Peninsula in a tiny little town called Matlock, probably smaller actually than Panaca. And that's what I wanted to get back to. Even though I live in Nevada and a long way from where I grew up, I wanted to be in a small town. I wanted to have that atmosphere. So
yeah, I guess if that's what you're used to, that's going to be what you crave in the future. But I think even though, I mean, I grew up in a much bigger town. I kind of grew up in suburbia in England.
Yeah.
But once you start being in a much smaller community and people, you go to the store and you're bound to bump into like at least 3 people that when you go there.
Yeah.
Like there's something that does, right?
In our community, if there's a person you don't know, you're like, who's this guy? Like, what do you do in our town?
Out of towners.
Yeah.
So obviously I had a great conversation with your dad not too long ago about some of his memories of growing up, but also doing the whole homesteading experience in the Olympic Peninsula. Did you have like a pretty rural like upbringing right from the beginning, from like your first memories, or was that like a transition?
A lot of my really early memories were not like big city suburbia, but kind of smaller towns. Not as small as we ended up, but I was about 7 years old when we moved out to Matlock and kind of started living my dad's little dream that he had.
Yeah.
You know, we moved out there. We moved into what was the guy's garage, and my dad still lives there in this garage that he built into a house. And there were, at one point, there were 9 kids and my parents in what was basically a 2-bedroom house.
Wow.
And the attic became kind of where all the boys slept. And then the girls had a triple bunk in the other bedroom. But all the boys were upstairs, and you couldn't stand up there. It's like this loft thing where if you stood up, you bunked your head. So you'd kind of have to, and we were little kids. You still couldn't really stand up. I went home a few years ago and went upstairs and was like, I can't believe that this was our bedroom up here. It's just this tiny little space. But it was so fun, like every day. Because there was no room in the house, like we were outside all the time. Like every waking moment, like you get up, you go outside. And we would spend hours and hours and hours, especially in the summer. I can remember my dad giving us, we got little 22 rifles when we were really young. Probably too young to have rifles.
How old do you think you were?
8, 9.
Okay.
You know, just little guys. But and we could keep our 22s in our room, but my dad would keep the bullets and he'd give us our allowance. We'd get 2. I'd have to preface this. Like, we were very safe. Like, it sounds extremely dangerous. But before we got our 22s, we had pellet guns. And before we had our pellet guns, like when we were like 5 or 6, my dad would make us carry around a stick. And he'd take away the stick if we pointed it at someone or we didn't have good trigger control or whatever. So we progressed to the point where we had our 22s when we were 8 and 9 and 10. And he would give us our 222 bullets and we'd go out for the rest of the day and probably do really stupid stuff. As a game warden, I'm thinking back on all the stupid stuff we did.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'd go and we'd shoot a rabbit or whatever, probably out of season, and take it home, and my dad would help us cut it up and cook it, and we just lived a really different lifestyle out there. He taught us how to, pick mushrooms, and we were 3 miles from the store where you could sell your mushrooms, so we'd go out and we'd pick mushrooms, and we'd walk to the store 3 miles, so it was like a 6-mile round trip walking with our little bag of mushrooms, and we'd sell our mushrooms and then buy a candy bar and a soda and walk home with our rifles. And we probably looked like just the craziest hillbillies, these four boys and a couple girls walking with our mushrooms to the store. And then, it was a really cool way to grow up. I didn't know it, but we were probably, pretty poor. We didn't have a whole lot of money in that space, but it was so fun. Such a good time. I have so many good memories. We would play games all the time. We'd build forts. We'd sleep in our little dugout, little shelters. And it was a great way to grow up. And it instilled in me just this like love of the natural world and natural spaces. And ultimately that led me to, want to protect that for future generations and become who I have become as a game warden. So
definitely. So I'm curious. I want to go back to the mushrooms. What were the kind of mushrooms what was the most prized mushroom amongst the siblings?
Mostly santrels. We would white and yellows. We had our special places, where we would go, and they were there all the time. And you could make, I don't know, $20.
Nice.
If we picked for 2 or 3 hours, we could walk down to the store and get $20 from the mushroom buyer.
That's a great deal.
That was big money when you were 8 years old,
For sure. That's massive money.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do a lot with $20, man. That's
And
borderline
we'd rent a movie and then walk home and watch the movie. We'd have to fire up the generator because we didn't have electricity. That was another one of Dad's dreams is, it's a true homestead.
Yeah.
He probably couldn't have got electricity even if he wanted it because he built the home and it wasn't to code and probably couldn't have got it. Like we had a power pole that went by the house, but there's no way he could have got an electricity attached to the house because he wired the whole thing and it was, solar panels and whatever he put together. But yeah, it was pretty sweet.
So how did you, if you didn't have power, how did you preserve food?
It's a propane.
Okay.
Propane refrigerator. Yeah.
Okay.
So he had propane. We had a generator we'd fire up to watch a movie and do some laundry, but then we'd have to go turn the generator off, and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And especially during the winter and when there's cloud cover over all the time, the solar panels wouldn't really light up the lights very good. So when you turn the generator off, you'd have like 10 or 15 minutes before all the lights went out. So we'd have, little flashlights in our room to read and stuff like that. But
I got a little tip to ask you about if you had any responsibilities on the property and maybe one of them was milking goats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had, I think the most we ever had was 7 or 8 goats, but every morning we'd have to, before we went off to school, I was the kid that probably smelled like a goat at school, because we'd have to go out and milk the goats and strain it and put it in the fridge. And then when we got home, we'd have to milk the goats again and feed them. We had chickens, we had sheep, we had pigs. It was a homestead. So
yeah,
we had all those aspects.
Was that different from the other kids around you when you were at school? Was it clear you felt different?
We lived in a rural community, but I think we were even weird to most of the kids at school, Yeah. The bus would drop all of us off at the house and we'd all go in this house, I remember them describing it as like the house would get bigger when all the kids would go in, or it would look bigger because I don't know, it was like this cartoon image of this tiny little house and 9 people going into it. So, yeah.
Sounds like you had a pretty free roaming time there. This is amazing, right? It sounds like a really amazing, wild kind of upbringing. Did that that freedom, did that ever get you in trouble, or did you ever get up to mischief? Any stories spring to mind?
I mean, most of the mischief we got in, we probably didn't get caught,
Yeah. Okay.
We were out in the middle of nowhere. We would gaff fish out of the river. It's a good thing there's a statute of limitations on all the things we did. But, we would definitely, I can remember poaching little critters and I remember I got in trouble when I was like 14 because I worked a truck off from one of the neighbor guys. It was an old yellow beater truck. Old Ford. It's like a 76 Ford F-150 2-wheel drive. But Dad needed a load of hay, so I drove down the road to a friend's house at 14 years old, bought some hay from them and drove home. And while on the way home, I got stopped by a cop. And he gave me a big ticket and I had to go to court. And I think I couldn't get my driver's license till I was like 17 or something after that. But I think cop was kind of a punk.
I really wanted to show you a lesson.
Yeah, or show my dad a lesson because he wouldn't even let me leave. He made my dad come down there and drive the car home, and Anyway, I think my dad got in trouble for poaching, and you probably listened to that in my other podcast. We just lived a different life. It was a subsistence lifestyle, and having the job I have, I completely acknowledge the fact that the whole world can't live that way, right?
Uh-huh.
Our natural resources can't support every family,
of course,
poaching animals for subsistence, But it was a fun way to grow up,
Do Do you mind telling? You told a good story in that podcast I listened to. I think there was a bit of a transition point for your father.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like he didn't grow up in a hunting family. Is that right?
No.
So he didn't really have kind of role models in the way to behave in the wilderness.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about my dad. He has this like innate connection to the world or to the natural world it wasn't taught to him. It was just something he had inside of him growing up.
Yeah.
He grew up in kind of suburbia and, but always wanted to be outside, started chipping arrowheads at a really, really young age, wanting to hunt, but having no direction. So I think he progressed to a point where he is now, where obviously he follows all the game laws and is very strict on that now. But when we were young, it was just, him wanting to connect to the natural world in almost like a Native American way. Like,
yes,
he wanted to be a part of that world that didn't really exist anymore, So, I mean, that was just his exploration of trying to find that space for him. And then he found Mountain Man Rendezvous, and he found a group of people and mentors and people that taught him how to do it correctly. And, I think that's a really good progression to get to the point, where he is now. And it was never disrespectful. Like, poaching in my brain as a game warden, there's different types. And the first type rarely exists anymore, where a guy goes out and poaches an animal for food and takes it back to his family and feeds his family with it. That's super rare these days. There's so many safety nets in the world with welfare and food stamps and WIC and all this stuff that, like, you don't have to do those things to provide for your family. Mm-hmm. Poaching now that really gets my blood going is like trophy poaching. Like guys are going out and killing a big buck out of season specifically for ego reasons. They're trying to kill the biggest animal for bragging rights and Instagram and fame and stuff like that. Like that feels disgusting,
Yeah.
It's completely, and I think that has helped me a lot as a game warden to understand the different motivations that can be there. And I take that type of poaching extremely seriously. But, if I did run across the guy that was like my dad, out poaching for subsistence, it'd be a completely different situation. And the courts would see it that way as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's definitely, having interviewed quite a few people now, it's often the people who are most interesting have fascinating stories growing up like you do.
Yeah.
And it's actually a guy who I just spoke to not too long ago who grew up in Canada, had a similar kind of situation where they just didn't have a whole lot of resources to support themselves, and they had a pretty big family, and they'd go out and they would take from the land in order to survive, right? And
Yeah.
I think it feels different morally.
It is.
I wasn't gonna necessarily bring that up myself because I didn't know how you'd feel about it, but you brought it up already. But there's definitely an ethically different kind of place for that. I mean, yes, it's against the rules, but there is kind of like a situation where maybe it's a different kind of thing. But to your point, when you tell stories like some of the stories I heard, and I've heard from many other people, it's like poachers where you kill an animal and you just take the head and then you leave the body.
That's the worst. Yeah.
Right? Like, and you just find like a rotting corpse of an animal. It's interesting. It does feel like a different kind of thing. I guess you didn't, was there an interesting moment for you? Well, it might not have been interesting for you at the time, but I'm wondering, this is an assumption on my part, but like everyone kind of grows up with their dad, like as a hero, as like the person who does everything right. Yeah. I was wondering, was there a moment for you when you realized the kind of potential flaws or like realized that what he was doing was against the rules or doing something wrong?
Yeah, definitely. Probably, in college when you start to, like, wildlife, the North American model of wildlife management is very unique, and I think it's spreading throughout the world now, but it lays out the fact that wildlife are held in public trust by government agencies, and their goal is preservation. And I think when I got into that space, into that world, and recognized, so let me say it like this. So a lot of people in North America, in the world, see the natural world as humans with the absence of humans, right? Like if you take humans out, that's the natural world. Like Yellowstone. Yellowstone is this natural space. That's pristine wildlife, ecosystems, and it's not.
Yes.
Right? Like human beings have been apex predators in natural spaces for 1 million years.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's not Homo sapiens, then it's before that. But we've always been there. You can't take us out of the equation and call that the natural world. We are part of that equation. So if the fact that we have wildlife like now we have millions and millions and millions of people, 300 million people or whatever in the United States. You can't have that same connection where everyone lives off the land, you know?
Yeah.
But that space that humans have in an ecosystem is still important. We're ecosystem managers. We've always been there, and we have to stay there in that space. And science is teaching us how to do that. And the North American model of wildlife management puts us in that space in a sustainable level, right? So I love hunting. Hunting has been a part of my life since I was very, very little. And it feels this like, it's almost like Joe Rogan calls it like a vitamin, right?
Yeah.
Like being in those natural spaces and participating in life and death, and it is who we are. Steve Ranella talks about that a lot. Like to take us out of that space is like foreign to who we are as humans. Like that's everything about the human race is hunting and wildlife management and stewardship over the land. And that's what I believe like God wants us to do and design this space for us to be in, to be ecosystem managers. So I love being in that space. It's super important for me to be in that space and being the person that's out there protecting the natural world, but still preserving the culture of hunting. And like it's very romantic, but that's the space that I feel like I am in it as a game warden, is preserving our heritage. Preserving the things that I learned as a child and that space that I lived in, but still doing it in a way that preserves it for future generations.
Yes, because it's a thing that needs to be maintained and protected.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. I mean, we've come from very different places in the sense that you grew up in a wild environment and you learned about hunting and like had a deep connection with the wilderness from a young age. And maybe I did in some elements, but more in a kind of athletic sense rather than a like learning and feeding from the land kind of way. And that's only been the last 7 or 8 years for me. And I definitely would say it's interesting you're saying about it's important for humans to realize a number of things. And I think one of those things is that we are animals, like it's very easy for people to differentiate themselves.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who have that detached experience from this wilderness life that the majority of the human race has experienced and like developed through, you're not connected with life and death. Everything's super detached. And I have to say, as I learned more about foraging and hunting and all those things, the idea of like mortality and our place in the world and the process that we all go through, the cycle that we all have, became a lot more comfortable when you've been around animals. And, you know, particularly bow hunting, I guess shots don't always go perfectly.
Sure.
But you witness an animal die in your presence. It's pretty real, right? And I think a lot of people who live a more urban life and are separate from that don't get to have that experience until just a few moments with people, right?
Yeah. I would love for there to be a situation where, like, I respect vegetarians.
Yeah.
Because they're principled. What I don't respect is people who have a problem with hunting and at the same time go to the grocery store and get their box of Lucky Charms and a package of steaks and never connect the fact that was a living creature at one point, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just food. Whereas, like, people who experience that situation where you're taking an animal's life, you're watching it die for your food. Like, that's such a spiritual connection to your food. Like, it's important. And I wish we could introduce more people to that, because when they see it, it's not a negative thing. It's not a sad thing. It's kind of, it is a little bit sad. There's parts of me that are, like, oh, it's sad that animal died. But when it's your food, there's such a respect there for that animal's life. My daughter, the greatest year of hunting that I've had was this year. I don't know if my dad touched on that at all, but
he sent me a few photos, but he hasn't talked about it. I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So I had one tag this year. I had an antelope tag, and we just built a house. So I had no time to hunt it, but we were all moved in by the time my son had a bull elk tag. He just turned 12.
Wow.
Little guy, but so pumped to go out with dad. And my daughter had a deer tag, and they both harvested this year. And it was such an emotional experience for me to be there with my kids and, introduce them to this thing that I'm so passionate about and see them have a successful harvest. And it was the best year of hunting, and I never pulled a trigger on anything, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I always get on my soapbox about it, but hunting is in a bad place for me right now. It's about Instagram and inches. Like, it should be about, like, we need a reformation to go back to. It's about that connection to the wilderness and family, like time with family in the outdoors with a specific goal in mind. Like that's pure, right?
Yeah.
When you start this, we have a big problem in our area that we live in right now. About a quarter of the tags go to landowners who sell those tags for big money. We're talking $20,000, $30,000, $40,000.
Really?
For a tag.
Wow.
So I, as a lay person who doesn't have a lot of money, I got to put in for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, 12 years in order to draw a tag.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Whereas if you're extremely affluent, you can hunt the same place that I protect every single year. And it just pollutes it. Like, it feels so gross to have that monetary influence in this really special thing. So I think that the hunting world needs that reformation back to, those roots. Those acquisition of meat should be the most important reason why we hunt.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Any other motivation is just ego driven. So
it's interesting, the idea of trophies, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure you know far more about this than I do. But the idea of finding a trophy animal, way back when that started, I don't know if it was in the 50s or something, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the idea of it was to try and protect populations of animals,
yeah,
because if you just run and you shoot the first thing thinking, oh yeah, that doe or that young buck is going to be the tastiest or easiest, you know, in that sense, that's going to be a thing that helps protect the populations. But it seems like that concept now has been given like nitrous oxide by social media, and that now has been taken into like a place of status more than a place of conservation.
Right. Yeah.
Is that right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, my daughter killed a giant buck this year, so I'm not gonna say we're not trophy hunters. Like if we go to a situation and there's a giant, beautiful buck that's gonna sit on our wall and be the remembrance of this incredible event where my 13-year-old daughter killed the biggest buck anyone in my family's ever killed, like that's cool, and that you know, inspires. But I don't know if we can make it still about the acquisition of meat and time in the mountains with family. That's just a bonus to be able to kill a really mature, majestic animal.
Yeah.
But if you go out into the field and I see so many people, especially young kids, like, I got to kill a 200-inch deer, I'm not happy with it, you know? Like I didn't accomplish something because it's not a giant.
Yes.
You know, there's so much more to that equation than just bragging rights, you know?
I don't know how you would, I don't even know how to begin to solve that problem, right? It's just like what's being pumped into people's brains from a young age, I guess. If they're getting interested in the idea of wilderness and hunting and providing your own meat, but everything that is being shown is like a kind of like a cold war of one-upmanship of all these animals, right? That are just bigger and bigger and bigger. And the reality is it's made normal, but it's not normal, right? Like you're not going to find a 200-inch animal all the time. That's a very special moment. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't even know how you would begin to change that. I mean, do you think maybe there'll be like a backlash to it at some point?
I think there already is. I think there's, you know, there's motivations now that are, I think, seeing the problem and pushing against it. So, and you know, doing stuff like this, talking about it, and you can. I'm a mentor in that space, right? Because I'm a game warden, people look to me a lot. So sharing my feelings about it, I think, is important. And I think we'll get there. It takes the right mentors. I think people who take you out and teach you about shot selection and caring for the meat after you kill it, and respecting the animal, taking every bit possibly, you know, utilizing every possible inch of that animal that you possibly can. Those are just ethics that come. The hunter safety program does a pretty good job of that. I think everyone that hunts in North America has to go through a hunter safety class, and it doesn't just teach, you know, don't point your rifle at someone. It talks about shot selection and meat care. So those are all things that can help us get there. But yeah.
So you dropped a little nugget there when you were talking earlier. I'd love to hear what happened in the hunt of this giant buck that you managed to get.
Can I share the screen with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is my daughter's buck she killed this year. And
wow.
She's 13 years old. So,
that's a monster.
Yeah. Again, that's probably the biggest deer any of my family's ever killed.
What's that, like a 5 or 6 point buck? It looks like
it's a 4x5.
Okay.
The greatest thing about him is he's really got a ton of mass, and he carries it all the way out through his whole frame.
Yeah.
So actually I wasn't there when she killed this buck.
Okay.
So in Nevada we have this thing called first come first serve. If someone turns in their tag before a certain amount of time. I think it's 2 weeks before the hunt. It goes into this site, and anyone can pick that tag up. So my son turned 12 years old, and I was like, he didn't draw any tags this year.
Okay.
My daughter drew this deer tag through the main draw. So I was on it, like I had to go up. I was working on a project, so I was on duty. But I had my phone just sitting there, and I was watching this situation happening. And I saw a bull elk tag pop up while I was on first come, first serve. And I clicked it, and I was like, oh, I just got Ruger bull elk tag. But it was way up north. It was in Area 6, which is like a 7-hour drive from here. So like 2 days later, I'm like, Ruger, we're taking you out of school. We're going to take you elk hunting. So we're up on that hunt with my dad and his wife, Grandma Faya, and some friends, and we're hunting really hard. And so I don't have time to hunt for my daughter. And my neighbor, who's a farmer, called me up and was like, hey, there's a giant buck over here in the field. And that's how tight our little community is, right?
Yeah.
Like they know that our neighbor has a tag, our daughter. So he calls me up and was like, hey, have your daughter come harvest this buck. He's a giant. Like I've seen him last year, but he showed up early. And I was like, dude, I'm 7 hours north. And I was like, go get our rifle, go get her out of school, and go harvest this deer. So my neighbor went and took her out of school, and him and one of my other buddies went, and she harvested that buck. And we were out of service all day. And I got a text message that said, hey, Cora got her deer. And I was like, oh, awesome. Send me a pic. And then when she sent the pic, I was like, that's not a deer. That's a freaking giant. What are you doing? So we were all pumped about that. And then at the same time, we were hunting his bull elk up there.
Yeah.
And just had a great experience with my dad. And it was really difficult because all the elk were on private land, and we were having a really hard time. It was like day 5 or 6 of the hunt when we were finally able to find some local people. And I love this about hunters, right? If they see a kid who's hunting, they're like, oh, I'm going to help this kid. Because that's the future, right? The future of this culture is our children.
Yeah.
And then carrying on this legacy that we have. So he told us where he had seen a bull, and we snuck in on him, and my son was able to harvest just a bull. He's a nice bull. A 6-point.
Nice.
So, and it wasn't a giant, but immediately upon that bull elk falling, he was just bawling. And we were both getting all emotional. And then Grandpa came over, and it was just a really sweet experience. So that was our hunting experience this year. And the freezers are full, hearts are full, and just had an awesome experience.
Yeah. It doesn't get better than that, like you said, right?
It doesn't. No.
Sharing that experience and seeing it through your own child's eyes. That must be so special.
I would share that video, but he'd get mad at me. But yeah, he's super emotional. He's crying, and we're hugging, and yeah. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, congrats. That's amazing news. The thing I wanted to ask you about then, I mean, I've got lots of questions about being a game warden, that whole experience, and I'm sure we'll go down loads of rabbit holes now, but the kind of upbringing that you had, that you described, were you even aware that game wardens existed like early on? When was the moment that you realized that, oh, there are these people that go and actually manage the land in the way that you do now?
Yeah, so that's a crazy experience. The first time I ever met a game warden, there was, I think it was my very first year hunting.
Okay.
We'd hunted pretty hard all year, all season. This was in the Olympic Peninsula, Washington State. I think it was the last day of the hunt. And my dad put me on a buck, and I'm like 9 years old. And we always hunted with the rifles that my dad built. So like a flintlock muzzleloader.
Yeah.
And on a flintlock, there's a flint that comes down. It's really old technology, but it strikes a piece of metal, and then sparks fly, and it ignites the pan, and then the bullet goes out. Well, I was just a little guy. Sorry, and I had my pinky in the pan. Didn't realize I did it.
Oh, really?
And that rock came down and smacked my finger and cut it open.
Oh, no.
I was bleeding and crying, and it was the last opportunity I was going to get to harvest that tag, and we were all bummed out. And on the way home, there was a small buck on the side of the road, and my dad was like, I'm gonna harvest this buck. And so he got out at night in the headlights, which is illegal.
Yeah.
Across the road, like all these things that you can't, unsafe things. And he shoots this buck, and he hits it, but it runs off. And I'm pretty sure it was an apple orchard, like some kind of piece of private property or something. And I'm just a little guy. But so my dad's like, okay, well, let's just leave and we'll come back in the morning and we'll find that buck and we'll harvest it. Well, when we came back in the morning, we didn't realize it, but the landowners there had said, hey, someone shot out here. So they were there waiting in the brush, which is something I would totally do now, right? And so we go out and we find this deer, and I think we're dragging it back or something, and the game wardens pop out. And that's my first interaction I ever had with a game warden, even knowing they exist, was, my dad getting in trouble. And I can remember being in the car in the back of, we had this little Isuzu Trooper or whatever, and looking out the window and seeing them put my dad in handcuffs, and I was crying, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys are jerks. Like, we're just trying to get some meat. And ultimately they didn't take him to jail, but he lost his hunting and fishing privileges for 4 or 5 years. And yeah, that was my first interaction or even knowledge that there was a game warden, such a thing as a game warden. So that's a pretty crazy story. But I think I worked for Alaska Fish and Game for 3 summers, like in 08, 09, 10. And I got a job shadow a game warden up there. I thought I wanted to be a biologist at the time.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to be in that space, right? That outdoor. Mm-hmm. I wanted to figure out a way to do something that I loved and make money doing it. So I job shadowed this game warden while I was up there. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, what he does is incredible. He's sneaking around, watching people. I was like sneaking around with him, making sure that people are following the laws that preserve our natural resources. So I came out of that experience working for Alaska Fish and Game and job shadowing him, knowing that's what I wanted to do. So then I just dove right into it. And I took every law and wildlife class. I got a wildlife degree from Utah State University. And right when I graduated, these are difficult jobs to get, right? They're super competitive.
Yeah.
So I decided whatever Western state hires first, I'm just going to start applying for everyone. And Nevada had the first hiring at that time. And my wife, I got married right about that time, and my wife's family was going to be in St. George. So it was close to Vegas. So it kind of worked out. So I applied for Nevada and got hired on as a game warden and just kind of hit the ground running. And I've been doing it ever since. So
okay,
it's an awesome career.
Yeah.
You're never going to be wealthy, but man, there's just such rewarding moments.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a bunch of good stories that you've told already about things that have happened to you. But I want to go back, like you saying about those 3 years shadowing someone in Alaska. That must have been a pretty incredible experience. Was there any distinct moments where you're like, this is what I want to do? Like, have any good busts, or did you, anything that you can talk about?
That guy, I don't even remember his name. I could probably look back in one of my journals or something, but so I worked at a weir, and a weir is basically they take PVC pipe and they create a dam that lets water through but doesn't let any fish through. And then they open a little spot and you count. My job was to count the number of fish that went up the river.
Okay.
And based on the number of fish that were going up, they'd open or close the commercial fisheries out in the bay, which was like 10 miles away. So while I was there, they were watching this guiding outfit that was on the same river. And so they brought in this game warden to be undercover, basically, and live at our weir and pretend like he was just one of the workers there at the weir. But the whole time he was watching this group of guides that were doing some shady stuff on the water.
What were
Or
they
they
guiding for? Was it for fishing?
Salmon.
Okay.
Salmon. Yeah. It's a big salmon guiding outfit. So I basically just followed him around, and he let me, because they knew me, right? And so it kind of validated him.
Yeah.
So I got to just follow him around. And it was just one season for about 3 weeks that this guy came out there. And, you know, we'd hide up on the bluff and watch him with binoculars. And it was just a really cool experience. And right then I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Because, like, biologists, they do a lot of surveying, and what they do is super important, but I'm kind of like, I don't know, a little more high speed. Like I need like crazy situations and intensity and stuff like that. So like you get to be in the outdoors and manage wildlife, but it's pretty cool too. You get to carry a gun, you get to, you know, go and bust people that are wasting wildlife and not following the laws. So it's a really cool career. I think he wrote a couple tickets to it wasn't as big as he had thought it was, but there were some over limits, and I think they were not filling out some paperwork or something like that. I can't even remember all the stuff that he found out, but it was awesome. And it was foundational for that like spark that like got lit in me, where I was like, yeah, I want to be a game warden.
Okay. So how long did it take you then to get through the process of training and then getting that gig?
You know, at that time, it's not the case anymore, but you had to have a degree.
Okay.
So I had to finish college. I got a wildlife biology degree from Utah State University. And then I job shadowed Utah Fish and Game in this like internship program where I followed them around for a lot of time and got to see their job and did some cool stuff. And about probably 3 years after that experience in Alaska is when I got hired as a game warden in Nevada. So
it's a lot of work.
I mean, it was just full tilt boogie after that. Like that was what I wanted to do. And it's been a great choice. Like I said, you're never going to make a ton of money because you're working for the state. But like I was making more money in the cheese factory in Logan, Utah, where I was working my way through college, than I was when I started out as a game warden. And that was kind of a kick in the pants, you know, like I finally got my dream job and I'm poor as heck. But there's moments like it's opening day of deer season and you're watching the sunrise up on a mountain and you're like, I'm getting paid to be up here right now while, you know, someone else is working in a cheese factory.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Chasing tips.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. There's something I was wondering about the life of a game warden. I'm guessing like your hottest times are when seasons are opening, like opening day in any season. Mm-hmm. Is that, I mean, that's got to be a bit of a tough sacrifice at some point. Or how do you work around that? Because you love hunting and you love being outdoors and putting meat in your own freezer.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you guys still manage to scratch that itch?
Yeah. So our department, for one, is very good about, I think it's important for a game warden to be passionate about that hunting culture. When you're doing that, our department is very good about, if you draw a tag, giving you time to go hunt it. Okay. But the other thing I do is I usually hunt off weapon classes. So I don't usually hunt the rifle. It's not It's
Yes.
just too busy. There's too much
Yeah.
going on. So my thing now is I usually hunt muzzleloader hunts, which are a little slower and I get more time. Plus I always have days off. So I can hunt, and I live in the middle of the areas that I hunt. So I can hunt like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The big sacrifice as a game warden is you're going to work weekends and you're going to work holidays. So it's difficult. It takes a lot of time out of your personal life.
Yeah.
When you're working where I work in this really rural setting, you're always on call, but that gives you the ability to work as you see fit. So I can work a 16-hour day, and then work a 4 and hunt in the evening.
Perfect.
I'm on call all the time, but I'm in charge of my schedule.
Yes.
So I find time.
Yeah.
Right?
That sounds
Like
pretty
you-
ideal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you? I mean, it might sound like I'm being negative, and that's not my intention. I'm just curious because it's a world that I've spoken to a couple of game wardens before, but I'm curious then if you have that flexibility. Sometimes when you have a job where your hours are really different from everyone else, does that have an effect on hunting buddies or people that you can hunt with? Or do you find that you hunt on your own a lot?
Yeah, that's another really difficult part about this job is whether it's right or not, you're looked at as the enemy, right? Like,
Really?
yeah, like especially you can put and it's all demeanor. So when I first started, I think I was much more of a hard charger. Like, I don't want to straight up say asshole, but like, like it's very easy. Here's the thing about wildlife law. You're regulating recreation, like people's fun,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's a weird space to be in. You're not out there regulating drugs or these really negative cultural things, societal things. You're regulating people's recreation, that what they do on their free time.
Their sacred time.
It's their sacred time. And game wardens have this flexibility. Like hunting is one of the most highly regulated things you can participate in. We
Okay.
say when you can do it, with what weapon you can do it, how many animals you can take. There's so many regulations, and it's so easy to mess them up. So most of the time you aren't dealing with hardened criminals, right? You're not dealing with really, really bad people. They're out recreating, but the motivations are there to skirt the laws and do things that are detrimental to our populations. So it's important that we're there, but in that space, you're the asshole. And so, it's hard to make friends. Like, who wants to hunt with the game warden, right? Like you're in that space, but you're not.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Is like if there's ever a point where you're kind of in a gray area, you can't be in that gray area if you like.
No, like
there's no looking the other way if your buddy's there with the
you
book.
got to cross your T's and dot your I's at all times, because everyone would love to see the game warden fall, right? Yeah. But I don't know. I love it. There's times where I'm like, man, I wish people could be closer to me and I had more friends, but I still have my really close friends.
Yeah.
Guys from college and stuff.
Yeah.
And then family friends, but ultimately I hunt with my family mostly.
Yeah, I know that's an amazing experience. Like you said, those stories are incredible.
Yeah.
You made me, this is a bit of a sidestep, but you made me think when you were saying about like people go when they're hunting to recreate you made me think of a time. I spent a bit of time actually living in a trailer traveling around for like a year and a half. And that was my first experience with BLM land, because you can stay on BLM land for a while for free.
Yeah.
So I was in Joshua Tree with my wife, and we stayed there for a while on and off. And it was a really fun thing to watch. There was this dry lake bed there. And that was something I noticed, is you never see people there unless they're doing something fun. And whether it's sensible or probably slightly illegal. Like I remember there's people running around bird shooting, there's people doing long range shooting across the whole lake, or there's people drunk driving around in the back of the truck shooting guns in the air.
Yeah.
And just there with your deck chair, like watching people just having an absolute great time. It's so true, right? Like it's a kind of a magical thing, and not the illegal stuff, but it's a sacred thing, right? It's people's time to let their hair down and do the things that they love to do.
Yeah, especially in the United States of America. Like we don't like people infringing on our freedoms, right? Like that's ingrained in our culture. So a game warden regulates exactly that. People's freedom, their ability to go out and do what they want in the natural world. So yeah.
But otherwise, you know, in the history of again, I'm saying things that you obviously know, and I'm sure people listening know, but without that regulation, there was like mass market hunting and the decimation of populations and all that kind of stuff, right? So,
and I think there's a progression in every single game warden. You come out hard charging, you probably upset a lot of people, and as you progress in your career, you realize, you know, what we do is really important, but it's not a murder, you know.
Yes.
Like you learn to take it and just be a little bit kinder to people. You know, help them understand what they're doing is maybe not the best way to do it. A lot more education than smacking them with a ticket, you know, right away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess that's a learning curve in itself, right?
It is, yeah. Especially because we go to the same police academy, right? I think that's an issue is we go to the same police academy where we're taught, you know, if someone has a firearm, your firearm's out, you know, like
really,
yeah. And in the hunting space, like you can't treat everyone like that.
No,
you know, because everyone has a firearm and they're not bad people. But it's hard to get past that training, that everything is life and death, and it still has to be there because it can get really dangerous really quick, you know. As a game warden, because everyone has firearms, and you know, you might be checking hunters and it's just, you know, everything's hunky-dory, and then the next guy you check could be, you know, have a warrant for his arrest for, you know, assaulting somebody or, you know, murder or whatever. Like you never know what you're going to run to. So that it's you have to be able to flip that switch really quickly to, hey, I am dealing with a dangerous situation here, and my attitude needs to change from fishing contact, you know?
Yeah, right. Is there any moments that you feel that you can share where you've had those kind of escalations where your weapon hasn't been out, but you suddenly realize there's a point where you do need to have that transition? One quick question. Sorry, I know I keep asking you things, but I do get a little bit of feedback. Is there with your headphones, is there a way of tightening up so that it's like not bouncing around as much? Is there a slider on it?
I think I could tie it.
Yeah, or if you just twist them as well. Like twisting. Oh yeah. Is that maybe too small now?
No, that'll work.
Is that okay? Yeah, way better. Yeah, if you're comfortable. Otherwise, you can undo and do it again.
That's good.
We're not in any hurry. I mean, we're on your schedule right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
As far as situations that, you know, kind of got scary, most of those situations happen when I'm like backing up. We live in a really rural community, and my backup, as far as game wardens go, can be hours away, right? Yeah. So I work more closely with local law enforcement, sheriff's department, and I actually took a 2-year break from being a game warden and was a sheriff's deputy for a little bit. So I know those guys really well. They trust me. So I've had situations where I back them up on whatever they're doing. And this was just like, what was that? 3 months ago, we had an inmate escape from the local jail. And he was hiding out in a house, and we kind of knew he was there, but we didn't know for sure. And so I was in the stack where we went in and cleared this house, and we went into the first 3 or 4 rooms and no one was there. And I can admit I kind of let my guard down because I thought he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Well, we go into the very last room and he's hiding under some blankets on the bed, and I didn't recognize it right away. So I went and I pulled the blanket off, and I had my gun out, and he had a great big knife, which he didn't swing at me, luckily, or I probably would have had to take him out. But we drug him off the bed and handcuffed him. But there's situations like that where I'm backing up local law enforcement where things have gotten, kind of hairy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That sounds...
And,
go on.
yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I just, those things don't happen a lot, but because they don't happen a lot, like as a sheriff's deputy, you're in that space all the time. So your what's called like officer safety is really high all the time. Game wardens, one of the most dangerous things about our job is we're dealing with recreators and good people all the time. So our officer safety goes down.
Yes.
In those situations. And it can create a situation where, game wardens are killed or seriously injured because of that space that we operate in.
It's like an element of trust that you have.
Yeah.
Which you need, otherwise, because you're doing a little bit of a PR kind of role. If you don't have, if you always go around on red alert, then that's going to be bad for business as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That sounds really tough, finding that balance.
Yeah.
So do you mind if we talk about a couple of cases that you can talk about? I don't know if this was a while ago. I think it must be, but technology and how that can help you in cases.
So I think that the biggest leap that I made as a game warden to kind of spur my career, like game wardens traditionally, when you go on a scene of a poaching, I'm going to change this.
Yeah, sure.
I got to make it a little. You can edit all this out.
Yes, no problem. Is that better? It's fine. You can take your time, man. I'm not in any hurry, so get it comfortable. I'd rather you were comfortable.
So going back to that question, one of the things that I really helped spur my career was kind of developing new investigative strategies and bringing those to our department. So traditionally, game wardens, when they go on the scene, we're looking for bullet casings, to help match up rifles. We do a necropsy on an animal to determine how it died. We're looking at tag lists, people that were in the area. And it's really hard to make these cases, right? So something I have really worked hard on bringing to our state, and it is nationwide, it's the way we make cases now, is looking at technology. So like if we have a suspect, the biggest piece of evidence that we can get is their cell phone, right?
Yeah.
Like traditionally, you'd have to get warrants and probable cause and everything to put like a tracker on a person's car or something to follow them around. And that technology was really rudimentary, but now everyone carries a tracking device around with them at all times.
Yeah.
And most wildlife crime is a crime of opportunity. So most people don't go out and leave their cell phone at home, So, and everyone brags about it. That's the thing about hunting, is they're putting it on social media. They're taking pictures. They're doing the grip and grin, So all that evidence is available. And social media, we can send in warrants on people's Facebooks and Instagrams and get all these photographs. And so that's kind of been my niche. And what spurred my career is getting into that space. And I can talk about a specific example.
Yeah, go for it.
So there was a case where an individual shot a buck out of season. And I talked about this in my other podcast, but we were able to, he had a whole story about how he did it and that it wasn't illegal, but we were able to get the metadata off of his photographs. Like when you take a photograph, there's a whole list of information, like when the photograph was taken, where it was taken, what time, with what camera. That's all embedded into the photograph, right? So you can take those photographs and analyze them, and we were able to find the exact location where that buck was killed and match it up to the topography in the background and stand in the exact spot where he took that photograph and prove that, no, this wasn't killed over here. This was killed right here. And that proves our case. Like we don't have anything without that photograph. So yeah, more and more game wardens are getting really, really good at analyzing metadata and cell phone digital forensics, and we've made a ton of cases that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So where was the buck? Was it so it was out of season, but it was in an area where he was allowed to hunt?
So it was, no. It was, his claim was that it was legally killed on a different date in a legal hunting area.
Okay.
And then we were able to prove through the metadata of the photograph is, no, it was killed on this date.
Yeah.
And it was killed here. And you poached that animal. And, you know, juries love that stuff, right? That's really sexy. If you can bring, you know, the buck into court and be like, hey, this monster buck that could have been legally killed by someone was poached by this guy that pays no attention to our game laws, and here's our proof. And it's not the traditional stuff that we analyzed that didn't get us anywhere, but we're able to analyze, you know, all this really cool evidence to make cases these days. So
Did he get much of a punishment? Because sometimes I feel like I hear stories and the punishment never feels very severe for like the crime.
Yeah, that's a really difficult situation that wildlife enforcement officers run into. Is we'll work and we'll put hundreds of hours into a case, and at the end of it get $1,000 ticket, which is basically, you know, like a reckless driving ticket.
Yeah.
After, you know, that much work and that much, so one of my other big things I've tried really hard to do is to get county DAs, especially in the areas that I work, they're going to be my best friends, right? Like they know me. I spend a lot of time with them. They know everything that I'm working on. We're taking our warrants to them. In rural Nevada, it's much easier because our economies are so dependent on that resource, right?
Okay, cool. Are you good for time? Like in terms of, okay.
Yeah,
fine.
I got another hour if we wanted to go that long.
Okay, well, let's see how
I coach our basketball team, and we're leaving it. I got to be in Panaca by 12, so.
Okay.
We're heading on an away trip.
Yeah, I'll definitely try not to go that long. I don't want to add stress to your life.
So a specific case that would be really fun to highlight, because it was so egregious. This was probably 2019.
Okay.
I got a call from a local kid that I knew that said he was at a party, and one of the other kids at the party, and I'm not going to name names or anything, but this kid showed him a video, and this is an insane thing that he saw and what this kid did. But there's a bull elk, a really big, beautiful trophy bull, and he's on top of it, and it's still alive, but you can see it's paralyzed, and he's got a hold of the horns, and he's a cowboy, so the bull's thrashing, and he's basically riding it like a cowboy.
Wow.
And you can see, he said, you could see it was injured. And he's like, it really disturbed me. So I just want to tell you about it. Now, just because we know that, or he says this, you know, we have to build our case, right? So me and a couple other guys got together and we developed a plan to try to investigate the situation. We learned about the fact that this kid and his friends were in a group of people who would get, you know, they'd get drunk, they'd party, and then they'd go out and they'd just kill animals randomly. It was just a thing they did. Out of season. I mean, a lot of local kids will do that. They call it bunny bashing. That's like a lower level of it. It's kind of the same thing, but rabbits are everywhere and their populations basically can't be hurt at all.
Yeah.
But so kids will go out and it is illegal for them if they do it to certain animals. And it's kind of dangerous because usually they're involved in, you know, alcohol and drugs when they're doing it or whatever.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't. But so we developed a plan to make this case. We found out about another antelope that this group had poached, and we had a location. So that's kind of where we started at. Mm-hmm. We didn't know where the bull was, but we knew a relative location of where this antelope was. So we took the whole group out there. It's big sagebrush flat, and we just started walking it, and we found an antelope carcass. And we matched it up. We found some bullets there, and it was a caliber that we knew that this kid had and used often to poach. So we're starting to develop that probable cause that this exists, right? Mm-hmm. So what we did then is we used that probable cause, that little tidbits of information that we're able to develop, and then this guy's testimony that he'd seen this video to dump his iCloud. And everyone's phone's backed up. With enough probable cause, a warrant will give you, a judge will give you a warrant to dump their cell phone. So we got his cell phone records, and that takes a long time. A lot of those companies don't like to give you that information. So they slow roll it. And I think it was about 3 or 4 months later, we got all that data back, and we were able to find that video of the bull, you know, being ridden, and it's a disgusting video. It was really disturbing what they were doing. This bull was shot with a 17, which is this tiny little round, 8 or 9 times. Yeah. And it, you know, they ended up hitting in the spine, and we found tons of other stuff, multiple other deer that were killed by this group. And then we were able to metal detect that area, found the same bullets, and matched it up from that bull to the antelope. And then we had some cold cases in the area that were also killed with a 17, and we were able to match up all the firearms from all the animals. We sent it off to a forensics laboratory, and they were able to say conclusively these bullets all belong were shot out of the same firearm. And that case went to trial. We were able to get one of our best. We were just talking about how wildlife cases notoriously have light sentences, right? Like courts don't see them very well. Well, in Lincoln County and White Pine County, they take these things very seriously. So at the end, we were able to prove, I think 5 or 6 different big game animals that were killed by this group. I talked to people that said, you know, about 5 or 6, but we're talking 10, 20, 30 different animals possibly that were killed kind of in the same way. And when we got to trial, they ended up hammering this kid for a wildlife case. I think there was $20,000 in fines, 3 months in prison or in jail, and hunting and fishing privileges taken away, and a felony conviction.
Wow. So
a felony is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Not only can that individual not vote anymore, they can't have a firearm for the rest of their life. Like these are pretty big convictions. And that was just the egregious nature of this case, right? Because it was so just gross what they were doing. The courts and the DA and the judge hit him, and we got a really good conviction out of that case. So, yeah, sometimes we get good convictions, but it's really frustrating sometimes to work really hard on a case, and then it gets pled down to, you know, hunting without a license. You know, when these guys did all these things, and we get $800 in fines, and but those are the exception to the rule, and I really want to hit that hard. Like, hunters, that's not everybody, right? 90% of what we deal with as game wardens are accidents, or, you know, I always call it like levels of negligence. So if a guy goes out and he's got a spike elk tag and he has a cow tag and he sees a group of elk and they're 300 yards away and he shoots one, he goes up there and it has tiny little spikes. Like, that's a crime. He should have paid more attention, you know, got closer to where he could really analyze what was going on there. But it's not like what we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
So that's 90% of wildlife crime is accidents, with levels of negligence in the accident. And that guy that killed the spike is much different than an individual who's 600 yards away and just there's a herd of elk running and he has a spike tag and he's just banging away at the herd as they're running. Like, that's a completely different level of negligence, but probably not. He probably didn't intend to kill the bull elk that he killed. He was just really, really negligent, and maybe doesn't have good mentors on how to hunt properly and take good shots.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, or like this seems more and more as we talk, there's the varying shades of gray that there are.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately it is right and wrong, but there are scales.
Yeah.
I'm curious, something else that really interested me when I was doing a bit of research about you is that being a game warden, you kind of are far more involved in like every part of a case versus criminal cases out in the kind of general public.
Right.
I think learning about forensics and crime scene analysis and even ballistics and that whole sort of thing, that must have been super interesting to get that training.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part of this job is right away, every case that you get into is it's on you, right? You don't have a team of people like in a big city. You go down to Vegas and there's a murder or something.
Yeah.
You have the initial responding officers that are going to show up and they're going to basically arrest the guy or whatever. They don't have much to do with proving the case. You got another team that comes in and looks at the forensics data, and then it gets sent off and an autopsy is done on the individual and they develop evidence. And then another person comes in and does just the photography, you know, and they're really dialed in on that. Like, a game warden has to be dialed in from one end to the other, from detecting the issue or the crime to developing your evidence and then writing your whole report, taking it into the DA, taking it through the legal system. It's exciting. Like, you get to be involved in all of that from beginning to end.
Yeah. Has there been, or even, this is another thing, right? Even understanding maggot piles, right?
Yeah.
Reading them. Tell me about that.
So there's a forensics entomology was another big class that we take where you can get time of death based on the pupal stages of the larva of the maggot. So if you have small, tiny little maggots and big maggots and hatched maggots, you know, hey, this is 3 weeks old at least, because the larval stages of these animals or of these bugs dictates that this is about 3 weeks old. Whereas if there's just tiny little maggots, you know, it could be 3 or 4 days or 2 days. And if you're only finding eggs, we're talking 48 hours. And then there's also like rigor mortis and and the eyes slowly dilate in different ways. Like if you come upon a deer and they're like, oh yeah, we just killed this buck, and it's morning, they only have like an hour before it was dark before that, and Rigger is full set up, and the buck's eyes are all glossed over, you know that buck was killed in the middle of the night. There's no possible way it could reach this stage in its death progression, you know? Yeah. So we pay attention to all that stuff when we get trained and all that stuff.
It's interesting. There's so many
fun.
Things
Yeah.
that I guess most people just don't know. So there must be a moment of it on their faces, I guess, when you're like, yeah, but their eyes, sorry, but like what you're saying is not true.
And then you can usually press them, you know, and if they're not if they're not confessing, then we'll seize the cell phone, and, you know, based off of that probable cause we developed, you know, Rigger's set up, and his eyes are completely dilated and gone. I can seize the phone, and then I can get their location data and where they were and when photographs were taken, and make a case based off that. So
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, it sounds it. Has there ever been any cases that you can talk about where forensics or ballistics or any of this training that you've had has really helped you push a case forward?
Yeah, there was a case. I was on field training, and this was another kid's case. I'm a field training officer, so I train people all of the time. But we had a guy that he called us up and reported that he was hunting in an area and he found a bull, and it was dead and had been shot. So we responded out there. We took his statement. We said, you know, did you ever see anyone else out here? And he's like, no, I've been the only one here. And I was like, well, did you ever shoot? And he's like, yeah, I shot, but I missed. 100% sure that I missed that bull. And we didn't find that bull till 4 or 5 days later. And so we did our necropsy, and we cut open the animal and found that bullet, and it matched the caliber to his rifle. And then one of the things we can do is there's twist rates on bullets and lands and grooves. Basically the pattern that the bullet left in the rifle.
Okay.
And it all matched. Like, we shot his gun and said, hey, took that case or that bullet, and basically told him, hey, this came from your gun, man. And he's like, oh, maybe. So we seized the rifle, we seized the bullet, sent it off for forensics, and we're able to prove that it was his rifle. Now, he didn't mean to do it, right? It was an accident. So in the end, we didn't destroy his hunting career and his life. He ended up getting a hunting without a license ticket or something like that. But we had to go through those, you know, bullet analysis stages to get to the point where we could prove, hey, he was the one that shot this bull. He just didn't know he would have done it, and he turned himself in. So we go to a wildlife forensics training class up in Montana. All of our guys do. It's like a week-long course where they have dead critters, and we just do the whole thing. It's pretty nuanced, but it's really important training for game wardens.
Yeah, it sounds like it, right? It sounds amazing that you have all those tools, especially as you have to cover so much area and so many different cases. So having all those tools in your toolbox is an essential thing, it sounds like. So I got a bit of a strange question for you, maybe. Are there any like really weird cases that have happened that you're just like, that's just so strange? Why would someone do that? Or like a really odd way of breaking a rule? I'm always curious when things like that happen.
There was a case back in the beginning of my career where it was like April, and we got which is not hunting season, right? That's like, does are giving birth, and we don't hunt animals in April, except for some spring bear hunts in other states. We don't even do that in Nevada. But basically that time of year, we leave them alone. they're doing their deer thing. So we got a picture of a Hispanic group, and they had 3 does with them, and they were dead. And so we started investigating it and got a warrant for the house. We went and served the warrant with a whole group of people, and we contacted the guy, and he was like, look, man, this is kind of a scary situation for me because the people that do this are drug cartels, right?
Whoa.
And there was this individual, he called himself El Pantera, and he was related to the drug cartels. And basically, when we hit the house, we found evidence of lots of poaching going on. But he said, look, it's not me. It's this group of people that come up, and they just they like deer meat, and they go back. And so we ended up getting another warrant for this guy's house in Vegas. And when we hit that house, we found that this house was basically like a human smuggling house, and they were poaching animals and putting them in the freezer to feed the human smuggling ring.
Wow.
So it really got convoluted. We took like 8 samples from this giant chest freezer and sent them off for genetic analysis, and found out they were all different deer. So there were lots and lots of deer in there. We get into this entire group of illegal immigrants who were all over our state. They can't even get Nevada tags, right? Because they're not residents of the state of Nevada. They could get non-resident tags, but then they can't possess firearms because they don't have Second Amendment rights, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a really weird case. In the end of it, we turned most of that over to ICE. At the time, this was probably 2013, 2014, and they took down that whole house and made a bunch of busts. But we ended up getting like 8 or 9 different convictions on all kinds of different individuals who were drawing tags all over the state, killing them in inappropriate areas. And that was just a really odd case, the way it started from just, hey, we got a normal poaching, and it turns into an entire, ICE investigation of human smuggling and crime ring. And
were you involved in the bust when they kind of raided the house, or was there anyone there?
No, there was no one there when we hit the house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And okay. I think the individual ended up just going back to Mexico and not facing any charges because, you can't go across the border and get them.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely a case that sticks out as what the heck? No idea what you're getting into when you just go to a poaching case, and then it, evolves into this major investigation involving the federal government and stuff. So
one thing I was wondering about as well, I mean, you've done I'm sure this is just the tip of the iceberg of things that you can talk about. But have you ever been involved in relocating wildlife as well, like moving game to different areas or trying to help populations?
Yeah. So we, I have a wildlife degree, and I thought I wanted to be a biologist for a long time. So it's not something we have to do as game wardens in Nevada, but I do help with that. We're doing some really cool stuff right now with putting collars on deer.
Okay.
And, learning about their migration patterns that we suspected but didn't have a lot of proof of. So this last year we put, I think, almost 50 collars on deer that are in Lincoln County. And we basically thought they stayed in one mountain range. They would just move north to south in their migration patterns, but only like a quarter of the deer that we collared stayed where we thought they were going to.
Wow.
And some of them ended up 150 miles away in Utah. Some of them, they just spread out, which really helps us understand how important those winter ranges are, the places where they all congregate. And so we do more patrols in those areas and protect Utah's deer even because they're coming out into Nevada. this gives me a great opportunity to plug our show. So we have a new show on Animal Planet called Nevada Wild. And a lot of the episodes so far have been about, one's really cool. I wasn't involved in it, but basically what we did is the historical range of sheep in Nevada, California, and I think they're Californias. Or no, they're deserts. I think they are deserts. So desert bighorns.
Okay.
They took an entire population of them and moved them into their historical ranges on an Indian reservation. And that interface between the Indian reservation and the Nevada Department of Wildlife, and us bringing back this really historical, important animal to their culture. And I think we put 20 or so back into their historical ranges on the Indian reservation, and they have their own biologists. And that was a really cool episode. I think that's episode 2 of Nevada Wild, where they do that. We do a lot of captures. We've got this stable population of moose in Nevada, which is crazy.
Really?
Like, most people don't look at Nevada and think, hey, there's probably moose there. But they started showing up in the like late 80s, early 90s. We started getting reports of moose. And now we have, I don't know the exact population estimates, but over hundreds in Nevada. Wow. And the last 2 years, we've actually opened it up to where we're starting to hunt them a little bit. So we give away 2 Nevada bull moose tags per year. And we now have a stable hunting population of moose in Nevada, which is crazy.
That is.
I think I've heard rumors that some people think it's because of the wolf populations in Idaho and them kind of like dispersing moose because of pressure and them trying to find places without wolves. But that's pretty cool. There's another episode where they're darting moose and in Nevada and putting collars on them so they can track them around and see what their, life habits are and what they're doing. It's a really cool career. We work, there's like Arizona, if you're an Arizona game warden, and I think Wyoming, and there's some other states, they give you a unit or a couple units, and you're the biologist and the game warden for those units. We don't do that in Nevada. Our game wardens and our biologists are separate, and we have our own distinct jobs, but we definitely help each other out. So, but I would love to be an Arizona game warden. That'd be so cool, because you get to do your flights and count your animals and, determine how many numbers of elk and deer can be taken out of a unit. And then you go out and enforce those laws. That's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds in some ways a bit like harvesting an animal, and all the way from animal to the plate, right? Like it's like being fully involved in the process is
the whole process.
Far more wholesome. I'm curious, did you find it harder to do your job when you had a TV crew following you around?
Yeah, it was intense, especially at first. Like in the show, they have a cameraman sitting next to you, filming you, and he's got a big old camera and it's pointed right at your face, and they're like just like 2 feet away, and then you have a camera here and a camera here in the truck. Well, they're just like little GoPros.
Like GoPros in the corners, yeah.
And then there's like 2 more people following you that, like, as soon as you get out, there's 3 cameramen and they're all kind of hiding in the brush. And the people that you're contacting are like, what is going on? And you're like, you have to tell them, hey, this is a real contact. I understand that there's camera everywhere and this is weird, but like, just concentrate on me right now. So that conversation happens all the time, which makes it really weird. And that like millions of people are going to watch you. And I've watched those shows and I pick those guys apart, right? Like, I'm like, oh, what is he doing? Like, you missed this, or dude, your officer safety sucks. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And now you're in it and you're like, oh, there's going to be some game warden saying, what is this guy doing? What? So it's completely nerve-wracking, but I think I had almost 20 days filming with them, and we got a bunch of stories, and I think I've been on like 4 or 5 episodes now. So it's been really fun. So
Yeah, I can
the
imagine.
weird thing about our show is it was filmed in 2020, and then it kind of hit the shelf, and there was like, we didn't know if it was going to air. For at least 2 years of that, I was like, it's over. It's never going to happen. Like we did all this work and created this awesome show, and now it's not going to air. And then finally Animal Planet said, let's run with it. So we just found out 6 months ago that they're going to air this show that we filmed 5 years ago. So I look a lot different now.
Okay.
So it's really weird to see myself. I'm a little thinner, but yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. And we don't make any money off of it. I can't profit from it in any way.
Yes. Okay.
But every state that's had one of these shows in them sees so many benefits from like just the applicant pool increasing. Mm-hmm. They're getting much better guys. A lot of the state legislatures say, hey, look what these guys are doing. They need to get paid more, like maybe they're underappreciated, but hey, this is what we do every single day. We're out here protecting Nevada's wildlife, and we're keeping our outdoor spaces safe for people to go out. And we do a lot of search and rescues. It just kind of puts what we do at the forefront of their thought. So every state that's done it has seen lots of benefits from having a show following them around.
I can see why it would be really easy to advocate then. If you've got this whole package that's been put together showing the important job that you're doing, it's going to be much easier and much less abstract to say, hey, these guys need to be looked after better. Yeah. You said that you had a bunch of missing persons. Do you have any interesting missing person stories that you care to share?
I think.
I mean, I can imagine in the environment you're in, it's actually usually a sad story when someone goes.
It is, yeah. We had 4 or 5 years. No, probably close to 8 years ago now. I was on regular patrol and came across a truck and just I think I wrote down the license plate or something, because I usually do that if I see a truck in the middle of nowhere. In case a crime occurs later, I can say, hey, this guy was there, whatever, and identify him.
Yeah.
But then like 2 weeks later, I come back and that truck's still there.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is weird. So I called the plate in, and it came back to a missing person out of Mesquite. And I did some preliminary look around. None of the tracks seemed fresh, but you could tell they were there. And I followed them and lost them. And then we called in. I'm actually part of Lincoln County Search and Rescue Program. So we called in our whole unit and spent, I think, 3 days with helicopters and drones and everything in the area searching for this guy, and never found him. And this is how these things usually work out. About 3 months later, some shed hunters were over the next canyon, and they found him actually hanging in a tree. He'd hung himself.
Oh, wow.
So then we went back out and did the body recovery and everything. But we get stuff like that. It's actually less now than it used to be. Like, Nevada is so open and so easy to get in trouble. But that situation has become less of an issue now with technology, right? Like, every phone now.
GPS.
Not only GPS, but like satellite. Like,
oh yeah,
most phones now you can connect to satellite. So I'm part of our search and rescue group, and we don't do a lot anymore because people self-rescue. It used to be people would run out of gas in the middle of nowhere. They're like there for a while. You can't hike out in Nevada. It's like you get into an area, you could be 20 miles from any main place where someone's going to be really, really easily. So it used to happen a lot, but now and people can ping their cell phones. The law enforcement can say, hey, here's a missing person. Let's ping their cell phone. Bam, we know exactly where they are. So it's much less common now. And especially since Nevada is so open.
Yeah.
Usually you can find a person.
Yeah.
We had another situation where an individual, a local guy, ended up missing, and we went out and searched for him, and we never did find him, and he's still missing. So that can happen as well. But
It's yeah, that's wild. It's interesting to hear that it's got much less now, and good. I suppose that's one positive about technology. There are quite a few negatives, I guess, these days.
And most vehicles now have systems where you can ping a vehicle. You know, like a vehicle is a cell phone now and a tracking device. So we can, if it's, you know, after 2010, it's probably easy to figure out where that vehicle is as long as we can know which the vehicle is.
I didn't know that. That's interesting as well. Thinking about my vehicles.
Yeah.
It's funny. It must be even just the last 7 or 8 years that this technology has really ramped up potentially because, I mean, even like I said before, when I was in Joshua Tree quite a lot, like it's obviously so hot there and people take a wrong turn. They don't have enough water in that kind of area. And it's like, I think just in like a few weeks, like 3 people dead there because you take a wrong turn, you get a bit disoriented, you get dehydrated, and then
really quick,
and that's it, right? Like, but I guess now if you have like the right tech on your phone, then you can hopefully self-rescue. It's more likely, but
yeah,
it's wild. So there was one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, but I don't want to finish on that somber note.
Okay.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times before about muzzleloaders and having a bit of history with them. Now, a little birdie in the form of your dad, when I asked him questions that I should ask you, he said to ask you about shooting long range with muzzleloaders and the fact that you maybe have special sights.
Yeah. So in Nevada, we have laws that basically you can't have a scope on your muzzleloader. I think that's really important because the reason you have special seasons is because it's more difficult, right?
Yeah.
So states that allow, technology's gotten to the point where a muzzleloader is turned basically into a single shot rifle. Yeah. Like you can get the technology to make a pretty accurate 500, 600, 700 yard shot with a muzzleloader if you have a scope. We don't allow scopes. So, and I love muzzleloader hunting. Most importantly, because I'm not a good bow hunter. I don't have the patience. I'm like really ADD, and I get to that 100-yard range, and I'm not very good at closing that distance. Plus, I really, really want the meat. Like, that's really important to me. So successful harvest is paramount, and I don't want to have years where I don't harvest or tags that I don't harvest. You have to be willing to not harvest if you're an archery hunter.
It's so true.
So muzzleloaders kind of become my thing, and to push my limits, my ability to harvest. And a lot of people are doing it now, but basically the sight that I use is a Williams, and it's adjustable. So I have my front aperture is a crosshair, and it's a really, really thin crosshair. One of the problems with open sights is at 200 yards, your front aperture usually completely makes the animal you're looking at disappear. Like that's covering almost his entire body.
Yeah.
So these really, really thin crosshairs on the front basically turn it into a scope without the glass, right? So your rear aperture is a peep, and your front aperture is a really fine set of crosshairs. And I spend a lot of time developing loads, and I can be really accurate and ethical out to 250 yards is kind of pushing it. I can hit a paper plate almost every time at 300 yards with my muzzleloader, but I'm comfortable out to 200. So anything within that, I mean, it's a dead animal basically with the sight system that I have. So I can hit my range, and then I click, say it's 168 yards or whatever. I can dial my rear aperture to 168 yards and shoot dead on. So it's pretty awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you find you get much bullet drift with that kind of range that you're shooting?
No, it's not really. At 200 yards and with, I shoot a 50 cal.
Yeah.
There's
Okay,
just
heavy
no.
thing.
It's a heavy thing. Wind doesn't really affect it out to 200 yards too much. So if I can get to within 200 yards on an animal, I can close that deal for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I have a goal to harvest every one of Nevada's big game animals with my muzzleloader. So
Okay.
that's kind of my little goal.
Yeah. How many do you have left, or do you have a long way to go?
So I've harvested a bull elk, mule deer, and cow elk. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I still need to get desert bighorn sheep and an antelope. And then I've kind of accomplished my goal. And I could have done it this year, but I just had no time. So I had my muzzleloader antelope tag this year, and I got to hunt twice. And I did get a shot, but it was going back to the whole climate thing. There was the one day in Nevada where it's raining.
Oh.
Crazy. And I'm with my muzzleloader, and I snuck in on a buck. I think it was I had the end of the day on the only day I had to hunt. And I had a buddy that was over here, and he spooked the antelope over to me, and the antelope was like 75 yards away, chip shot for me, and the gun, I pulled the trigger on the buck, and it just went pop, and I must have had some kind of little water bubble in there in the muzzleloader, and that's what makes muzzleloading hard, right? Is you got to deal with the elements, it makes it harder. But so I got to wait 5 years now before I can put in for another muzzleloader antelope tag. But
Oh man, that must have hurt.
yeah, it sucked, but still had the best year hunting of my life.
Yeah, exactly. You get the stories.
Yeah.
So, I'll wrap up in a second. The last question I wanted to ask you that I was wondering is, now that you're on TV and you're in lots of episodes of this show, have you been in the process of busting someone? And this is not when you're being filmed now, but being in the process of busting someone, and they're like, "Hey, are you that guy from TV?"
So this just happened. Yeah, I just had a case, and I was trying to be in a situation where, I was unrecognizable. I was just pretending to be a hunter, and this guy looked at me a little extra long. And the crazy thing is they had already committed the crime at that point.
Okay.
But when we busted him like 4 or 5 hours later, and I was in full uniform, he was like, "I knew it. I knew you from the show." And I was like, dang it. So that is a negative on this, is some of the work that I do is I try to be discreet and, people not know who I am, but that ship sailed. So yeah, I can't really be in that space anymore.
No, you're gonna have to do a big makeover or some disguises, otherwise.
I mean, I got a big fat beard now, and I'm trying to hide it a little bit, but yeah, it makes it tough. But we still have a lot of, we keep certain individuals off that show because we want them to stay,
Anonymous.
the ability to stay anonymous. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John. That was such a good conversation. Thanks for answering all my questions today.
I had a great time. I love talking about what I do. If anyone, wants to be a game warden, you can look me up. I'd love to take them on ride-alongs or have a conversation with them. They can give me a call. You can find my phone number, through the Nevada Department of Wildlife. And it's the best career in the world. If you want to be out in the mountains and, being a part of this culture and doing what we do, there's no better job. If you're the kind of guy that kind of needs, adrenaline and stuff like that, like it's a tremendous career. So
I actually had this as one of my questions in the wrap up, and I guess you've kind of answered it already, but maybe you'll have something else to add to that, which is like, if someone is thinking about being a game warden, if you were going to give them a piece of advice, what would it be?
like if you are in a state and you want to be a game warden in that state, I think the most important thing you can do is go be involved. So there's guzzler builds in the state of Nevada. Go meet the people that do the hiring, you know, like don't just be an anonymous person. Go out there, you know, job shadow, go on ride-alongs, go and just, especially if you're in college, like if you're close to applying to be a game warden, like go get your face known. Don't just be someone that shows up and no one knows. Like be that person that, oh, hey, you know, Robert, we know him. Like that would be the best way you could get into this field if you really want to do it. And be involved in hunting, be involved in fishing, get out there and learn the culture, because you can't relate. One of the biggest things you can get as a game warden is people that give you information, right? Like you can go out your entire career and never watch a poaching situation happen. But if you are integrated into the world around you and you know lots of people, like people are going to give you information and you're going to be so successful because of that interaction. So yeah, get out, hunt, fish, and be in that culture.
Yeah, be in the community.
Yeah.
One last thing, how can people find you again on TV if they want to watch you on the big screen?
So every Tuesday night right now,
okay,
a new episode airs on Animal Planet. On the Pacific Coast, it's going to be at 9:00. And then I think East Coast would be 5:00 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So maybe it's 3 hours difference, I think, right? So
and then throughout the week, they replay them. And then the Game Warden channel is England Entertainment's channel. And all these episodes are going to be on the Game Warden channel on YouTube. Once the season's done airing, they're going to throw them all on the Game Warden channel.
Okay,
so,
great.
The Game Warden channel has Northwoods Law and Texas Lone Star Law. Like all those episodes, I think, are going to be on there as well. Don't quote me on that, but
okay,
it's a really cool show. If you want to be a game warden, go watch the Game Warden channel.
Yeah, you'll learn some tricks there as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
Well, you're welcome. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, dude.
Thanks, Robin. Bye.
Right, that's another episode done and dusted. I guess it's down, tagged appropriately in the legal manner for the state requirements, and in the cooler. Thank you again, John. That was a fantastic conversation. Again, if you enjoy the finale of Season 1 of Nevada Wild on Animal Planet is going live on Tuesday, January 6th, at 9 p.m. EST. So be sure to check that out and check out the whole series. What else do I want to say? Yes, thank you, everyone. If you are still here at this point, then thanks for listening. Be sure to give us a follow and make sure that you're up to date with all new episodes. And yeah, maybe even leave us a positive review. It really helps and it's really appreciated. If you could slip a 5-star in there, then that will mean that more people get to see this show, and it makes my life even easier finding great guests just like John. There will be John's dad, Dana Anderson, coming soon. I'm not sure if it's going to be next week or the week after. I'll have to have another look at the schedule. But Wild Mountain Man Dan is inbound. So yeah, tune in for that one. Once again, everyone, thanks for listening. And until next time.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.